Afternoon everybody, it's now time for another snippet of delightful digital content. I really hope that you've been enjoying the videos that have been uploaded to the Environment Hive YouTube channel so far. Please could you send me your photos and videos to our adjoining Instagram account. I'd really love to see how you're being more eco-conscious and any inspiration that you've taken from the video content from the YouTube channel so far. I really would love to be part of your transition and your journey as long as you are as part of mine. So please send me those photos and videos and send me inspirational ideas you think that I could give a go. And also leave comments below regarding challenges or anything you want me to give a go, and I'll give them a read through, and you never know, something that you think about and send to me may end up in a future video. Before I start the video, I think it's important to talk about the environmental disaster that is unravelling and unfolding before our very eyes, and the impact it is having on our generation right now. Not in 10 years time, not 50 years time, not 100, 200 years time, right now. If anything, the frequent freak extreme weather that's being experienced globally right now is a sign that this global climate crisis is fast and rapidly becoming an issue that is immediately affecting our lives and requires an appropriate immediate response and reaction from everybody globally, including people individually and governments and organizations. This is a problem for right now that needs resolution right now. So please, please, please start or continue to find ways to reduce your impact and be more kind and more positively impactful on our planet. Please educate yourself in this informed digital age, the same way that I'm trying to do. There is a wealth of information that is out there on the internet for you to find ways beyond just myself and my accounts, where you can find out information on how you can be less negative towards our planet and our wider ecosystem. You can also provoke change by joining community groups or causes that voice their concerns with people at local or national government level. That is another way that you could make your voice be heard among a massive group of others with similar interests and passions, by joining local or national groups and causes that can help you have your voice be heard. Earth is around 4.5 billion years old, yet in an incredibly short piece of its life timeline, modern generations of our species have become accountable for and have accelerated this trajectory of destruction that we are currently on and experiencing. And that is inexcusable and unacceptable. I can only hope and dream there are other people out there with me. Please let me know you are there, that are hoping to provoke and support change that helps to stop this scenario from continuing on the trajectory that we are on, or our futures are going to be even more unsettled and unpredictable than they already are. Who even knows what type of future we are heading for? So the topic of today's video is one of my favourite living creatures, and to be fair, nothing I could say could give it the introduction that it deserves. Today I am talking about bees. Let's talk about bees. I'm going to start by doing a quick fire selection of facts about bees, particularly the species and populations that live within the UK, which is where I am from. But it is important to know that bee populations play such a vital global principal role within our everyday lives, yet unfortunately it is unrecognised and ignored by most humans. So here goes. Fact number 1. There are 3 types of bee that currently reside within the UK. You have honeybees, bumblebees and solitary bees. Fact number 2. As their name would suggest, honeybees are the only UK species that create the honey that we consume and other products that are made by bees, including beeswax and propolis, which is used within natural remedies. They are not usually wild species of bee and are usually domesticated and kept within man-made hives and controlled and managed by beekeepers. These man-made hives and colonies can have up to 100,000 individuals within them, and they can last for more than one season and more than 1 year. Fact number 3. There are 24 different species of bumblebee within the UK. The most common species is the tree bumblebee, which has adapted incredibly well to deal with the growing environment and urban development that humans keep building around them, and actually have begun building nests and creating nests within bird boxes and roofing eaves. These hives of bumblebees can have between 50 and 400 individuals. And just a complete stark difference between wild bumblebee hives and managed and domesticated honeybee hives. Fact number 4. UK bumblebees are capable of doing something that is incredibly special called buzz population. They release a high-pitched buzzing noise when they are attached to a flower, which enables them to draw out pollen that is stuck and trapped within difficult places to reach within flowers within UK flower populations. Isn't that just amazing that our bee species do something incredibly different and incredibly special that allows them to go that extra mile to get pollen? Isn't that just brilliant? Fact number 5. Bumblebees will leave a scent on a flower to warn and alert other bumblebees as they come along and buzz along and fly along that there is no nectar or no pollen left within a certain flower, so that they can be more efficient and don't waste energy. See, isn't that just brilliant? Aren't they just the sweetest thing? That they leave the scent, which comes from their feet, apparently. I don't know if they're called feet, but I'm calling them feet anyway. Which they leave from their feet on each flower to alert other bumblebees, sorry mate, there's nothing left here for you. Go and buzz off and fly and find something else. That's just brilliantly evolutionary, organised and efficient. Fact number 6. Bumblebees tend to be bigger and hairier than other UK species of bee, which allows them to fly around in cooler climates. So you may see them on days which are not sunny and bright, and you might find that they're a little bit more hardy to the UK weather, particularly with the extreme freak weather that we may experience in the future. Bees may have to become even more hardy, and hopefully this doesn't impact even more negatively on their populations, because they are evolved enough so far to handle and deal with some of the more extreme, worse, awful rain that we get and the wind that we already get here. Fact number 7. Globally, there are around 16,000 minimum species of bee, and 8 of these are honeybee species. Fact number 8. There are around 267 species of bee within the UK, and a massive 90% of these bees are not social, a little bit like me. These are the solitary bees, and these guys have an amazing pollination power. One red mason bee can pollinate to the level of 120 honey bee worker bees. Isn't that just amazing that one bee has the pollination power from a solitary bee species to pollinate over 120 worker honeybees? That is an amazing pollination power that just astounds me, that one bee can work to the equivalent level of pollination of 120 others from a different species. That's just amazing. And would you like to know what the most important bee fact of all is? Bees are responsible for pollinating the majority of our worldwide crop yield. It is a massive majority of at least 85%. That is a massive amount, a massive figure. They do not say busy as a bee as a saying for no reason whatsoever. These guys provide us with the luxury and abundance of food that we have access to. Not only do they provide the crops that we eat, whether it be vegetables and fruits, they also provide the grazing crops that give animals feed and food, including livestock that are used for meat and used for dairy. They also support the flowers and other fauna and flora that are out there, which support the wider ecosystem that we benefit from. To be honest, without bees, the world would be a grey, desolate place. And to be honest, the actions and responsibilities of humankind, it makes me feel that that is a punishment that is becoming well deserved. We are the first generation that is responsible and aware and accountable of what is happening and what impact we as a species are having on our planet. And we are the first generation that I believe should implement change that is, as far as humanly possible, prevent further damage. We are responsible, we are accountable, and we now have to implement change to save the future for species beyond our own, including insects and bees and animals and fish and plants alike. We all deserve to be here. We all deserve a chance, but it is us with a higher being, a higher power, a higher possibility of innovating and implementing change that is responsible and should make sure that happens. Since 1900 alone, 13 species of bee have become extinct within the UK, and currently there are a minimum of 35 species of bee that are on the threatened list. And an even starker truth is to realise that bee populations are declining globally. An even harsher, starker truth is to realise that their obliteration is directly linked to what we do as humankind. We are responsible in several ways for the declining populations of bees. As a minimum, it's to do with the space and resources we take. We are becoming the natural nemesis of one of our biggest allies. And what the hell would we do if the bee population were to disappear overnight? Pollination takes time. Pollination takes time, resources, money that we as a race of people would not be able to fulfill overnight. If bee populations continue to decline as rapidly as they are doing, we are going to be absolutely up creek without a paddle if we do not do something to help support, nurture and encourage our bee populations globally. And that issue of pollination, if this has to be done by hand, is going to have massive financial implications on us as societies globally. There will be far more people that will be living beneath the poverty line because they will not be able to afford the food that they already at the moment put on the table. It's disgusting enough that there are people that live beneath the poverty line within my own nation and globally, especially within developing third world countries. Can you imagine how on earth would these people survive? They already have limited access to resources. This is going to be disastrous. If bee populations were to disappear overnight, everyone that has their cushy little experience and life and luxuries within first world countries, this includes myself, we will be facing disaster that we are not going to be able to repair or come back from very easily, and our little cushy lives will be cushy no more. This is a warning that is being we are alerted to. We know what we are doing wrong and it is up to us to do something about it. And it is going to have a bigger impact than we all really recognise and realise now than just the weather changing. Our food sources, our sources to other things, because bees pollinate everything really. They pollinate the wider ecosystem, and that is going to have a massive impact on our lives beyond what food we are able to get on our table. The simple accessibility that we have to anything and everything that we desire within this first world society, I am included in this, is grossly underappreciated and taken for granted. And it would not take much to tip that balance and have our little cushy lives and experiences thrown completely upside down. There are several reasons why the blame can be apportioned to humankind for the rapid decline and potential extinction of bee populations. Number one is intensive agriculture. To meet the supply and demand needs globally, more land has been taken for agricultural purposes. This means that vital meadows and vital ponds and vital hedgerows have been removed, which bees, particularly wild bumblebee species, rely on for their resources in terms of where they source their nesting and where they source their food. Number two is to do with tree cover within the UK specifically at this point, and this is what I'm mentioning. There is only 13.2% of tree coverage over land space within the UK at this moment in time. 13.2%. That is despicable. That means almost, 85, 86, 87% of land has very basic or no tree cover whatsoever. That is particularly impacting upon tree bumblebees and other bumblebee species that rely on trees for their nesting, for their resources for food. And that is despicable, because trees are so important for removing carbon from the environment, for controlling and regulating temperatures within our world and our wider lives. Why the have we only got 13.2% of tree coverage within land space within the UK at this moment in time? That is despicable. That has to be resolved. The development of land, particularly for urban landscaping and building, also impacts upon bee populations. As earlier discussed, bumblebees depend on the wider world for nesting and for food, as they actually do not store large quantities of honey within their hives. So they have to go out and seek food regularly. They do not have the facility or the capacity to feed their colonies and their hives from what is stored within their hive. They need resources and access to food at all times. This also includes those lovely paved, architectured and landscape gardens that people have and are so popular in this day and age. They have taken away necessary weeds and necessary plants that are not particularly desirable by human beings and humankind within their garden, that are so necessary to bee populations, particularly in early spring when they are looking for food so they can re-establish their new colony. But I will go further into the life cycle of bumblebees in particular a little bit later in the video. And number 4, exposure to pesticides, parasites and disease and the effects of climate change are also affecting our fuzzy buzzy friends and putting them at risk of extinction. So what as individuals can we do to help? The Bumblebee Conservation Trust and Friends of the Earth UK and many other organisations that are available on the internet provide lots of information and resources of how you can find ways to help bees within your local area. The Bumblebee Conservation Trust even has the Be the Change pledge, which allows you to sign up and use your skills to help bee populations flourish within your local community. But here are my tips on how you can kickstart your journey on how to help bee populations within your local area. Number 1, plant bee-friendly flowers which are particularly rich in nectar and pollen to help bees have a source of food throughout the seasons. The Bumblebee Conservation Trust has an excellent guide to what flowers you can provide within your garden month by month to allow bees to thrive and flourish throughout spring, throughout summer. I will post a link to the Bumblebee Conservation Trust and Friends of the Earth UK and some other resources down in the description so you can whiz straight over and get some information for yourself. Many flowers that are available to purchase from garden centres have a brilliant logo on the label that show you if the plant or the flower is bee friendly. There are also many resources to help you find native species of flower that are great for helping pollinators and bees alike to thrive and flourish within our community. Number 2, leave your lawn alone, particularly through the early weeks of spring and summer, as this allows flowers to grow, particularly weeds. I know it's not exactly polite or etiquette to leave your lawn to grow, but please leave your lawn to grow through at least 3 weeks. There is usually an initiative that runs through May called No Mow May in the UK, which encourages people to not mow their lawn at all for the month of May. So next year, in May 2020, if you've seen this video before then or in the run up to then or just throughout that month, try to leave your lawn alone for at least 3 weeks to allow it to grow up, let some flowers grow through, which are so essential to bees early in the spring, that give them sources of food which are not available from flowers that have not bloomed by that point. Number 3, I know it's difficult for people to hear this and to say, but please leave the weeds alone. Weeds do provide valuable food sources for bee populations and allow them to feed and be healthy and flourish, which it does in turn pollinate crops that we do want and pollinate flowers and trees that we do want to see. So please leave those weeds alone. There are actually 5 weeds that are particularly good for bee populations. So please, if you could leave the following 5 alone as best as you can and identify them off of the internet if you don't already know what they are, then that would be brilliant. Those great super weeds are dandelion, white clover, common mallow, white dead nettle and common knapweed. So if you see those variations of weeds within your garden area or somewhere of the like, please leave them alone and let them provide food for our bee populations. Number 4 is have a designated area if you don't want to completely revamp your garden so that it is a little bit more wild and organic and natural looking. Just leave a certain area where bees can thrive, whether it be a section of lawn, some potted plants or a wildflower bed and garden area within your garden space so that bees can have somewhere to keep returning to. I must truly say, over the last 2 or 3 summers, we have completely extended the bee-friendly plants that we have within our garden. And this year, I have seen an astounding, an extraordinary amount of bees. And I don't just mean one type of bee, all sorts of different bee and bumblebees within, and solitary bees within my garden. And it's just been absolutely amazing to see that I have played that small part in helping them thrive and flourish within my local community. Even if you have a balcony, you could put a few potted plants out there, which would help bee populations. Because at the end of the day, as we've all seen, bees can fly. So it doesn't have to be necessarily at ground level. Balconies can provide a vital lifeline for bee populations. So please fill those tiny little balcony barbecue areas that you may have. I appreciate, especially during lockdown, that it has probably been incredibly difficult for people that live within confined spaces such as apartment and flats. But if you do have a balcony area, please just get a couple of small bee-friendly plants which will help the wildlife in your area thrive. And you never know how much enjoyment you might get out of it. I absolutely love to see bees within my garden. You never know how much you might enjoy to see them too. And number 5, make a bee hotel. There are plans and videos on YouTube specifically that show you how to make bee hotels. My dad actually made one within our garden. I'll probably try and insert a picture here somewhere. And these are, or even a bird box or a hedgehog box. Particularly bee hotels, as they have hollow tubes, are very vital to female solitary bees having somewhere to nest where they can lay their young. Dry hollow tubes are really great spaces for female solitary bees to lay their young, which means that further generations can exist and help bee populations thrive and flourish. So get a bird box, get a hedgehog box for other beehives and populations, and also potentially build yourself a bee hotel that will help solitary bees. I truly believe that having further understanding of the life cycle of bees allows us to better support them and understand what we can do to positively encourage their populations to thrive and improve. Bumblebee hives only last for 1 year. Honeybee hives actually last for several years. So really, to do with wild populations of bumblebees, understanding their life cycle allows us to learn how we can best support them. So now as autumn extends its reach into our lives and drapes us in darker mornings and evenings and cooler mornings and evenings, which, to be totally honest, I'm not a massive fan of, is only the female queens, the new female queens from this season that survive. Bumblebee hives completely die off apart for these female queens that hibernate and find somewhere safe to be underground for the winter months. Then when spring arrives, the female queens wake up and they go in search of rich nectar foods that allow them to gain their strength and gain their energy to find somewhere new to nest and to begin collecting pollen for the new colony that she hopes to build. This then in turn, once this has been done, this is why it's so important to have flowers and weeds early in the spring, because these new queens appear and are looking for food. They're looking for ways of gaining energy so that they can create the new colony for that year. They only last 1 year. So it's important that these queens, initial queens that wake up in the spring, in early spring, have something to feed on. Hence why having weed populations early in the year is so important, particularly before flowers that only develop later in the summer and warmer seasons exist. They are not around. So we need these weeds to be there for the bees so that they can create their new colonies. So as she has developed her new nest and has begun to collect pollen and nectar, she lays her first batch of eggs. These are female workers which will feed the colony as it grows and grows and grows, and more batch of eggs are created from the queen of the colony. There is only one queen. So as the later months of summer come along and the colony has been well established and well fed throughout the year, there is a final kind of batch of eggs which are males of the species, and some females which will go out there to be fertilized so that they become the new queen of their very own colony the next year. So it is these fertilized female queens that hibernate throughout the winter once the hive of that year, the nest of that year, is gone, and continue the species for another colony for another year. I just think that's an absolutely fascinating life cycle. It makes me a little sad to think that bumblebees, the creatures that I love to see and feel so endearingly towards, they only last for one season, and that their lives are continued on in a brand new colony, in a brand new nest and a new hive through one fertilized queen that hibernates throughout the winter. And sometimes they hibernate underground, so it is important to have places where they can do this, where they are allowed to survive for those really harsh winter months. I think I read online somewhere that sometimes they are hibernating within compost heaps, so please be careful if there's compost heaps around or a massive pile of leaves and things like that. Please try your best to be aware that there could be female fertilized bumblebee queens within there somewhere that are hibernating for the winter, and hopefully you don't disturb them. So this video has probably been a little bit intense, so on a lighter note, I will include some photos and videos of bees that have been in my garden. I'm really sorry, I'm not very good at identifying them, so I'm not even going to try. I'll just let you see them buzzing around in my garden, landing on landing on flowers, and just living their buzzy little lives in relative peace within my garden. It's been an absolutely wonderful summer for the bee populations within my local area, particularly within my garden. It's been an absolute joy to see them, and there's so much fun that could be had in identifying bees. There's so many species out there, 24 bumblebee species within the UK alone that you can try and identify. It is a little bit difficult with some species to tell because it can be such distinct and slight differences within the colorations within their bodies and their tails, but you can certainly get those resources online and give it a go yourself. I've tried and racked my brain throughout the summer to try and identify some of them, but to me, in my ignorance, a bumblebee is a bumblebee, and to be fair, that to me is exciting. And to see a whole flourish of them around on one flower in my garden, I think at one point I saw 6 or 7 on different flower heads of the same plant, and that is the first time within my lifetime and within me living within this house, particularly since we got these bee friendly plants, that I have seen that many bumblebees within my garden in one piece of time. So I am absolutely pleased with myself and my family for supporting bee populations and for just getting the enjoyment out of their presence. And seeing so many bees within my garden just gives me hope that given a little space and encouragement from us as humans to be allowed to do what they do so well and so naturally, that they will have improvements in their numbers, in their populations within the next few years. We depend so much on them, and I think there's a level of ignorance to how much they actually do for us, and it is down to us to be responsible for ensuring that they can continue to do what they do for us by doing what they need to do for themselves. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. I apologise if it's felt a little bit heavy. I do get really impassioned when talking about the environment, but specifically when there is something that we have caused and there is such a detrimental impact upon a species, particularly bees, which I am so fond of and absolutely love bee populations. It is a little bit sad to think that quietly bees will disappear for the coming months, but I hope that you, going forward, the same as I, will find ways of supporting them in the future so that that silence throughout the winter months does not become permanent in the future, that bees manage to survive with our help and become a greater population and provide us with the continued luxuries and abundance of food that we have access to already. So I'm really hoping that this temporary period of silence that is experienced with bees disappearing now is not permanent for next year and future years. I really hope to see you in the next video. Please comment down below about how you are prepared to already support bee populations within your local community, and please send me photos on Instagram or videos of any bees that you may have spotted over the summer within your local park or your local garden. And I hope to see you in the next video. Bye.